Hello everyone and welcome to Polytopia. So I haven't had much time to play lately, but I wanted to make a video on this week's weekly challenge because it's pretty crazy. As you can see, the top scores are almost 45,000 points, which is insane. Which is funny. The last week I thought, and last week was the highest point weekly challenge in I think ever, but this week now actually tops the last one as well. Or I guess it wasn't the last one. It was the one 2 weeks before this. But anyway, this I think will probably be the highest point game you can possibly get in the weekly challenges. When I'll show why in a second. But yeah, the Silver League actually think has the most. Well, no, well, all the leagues actually is pretty even. The top score, they're all around 45,000, which I'm even more surprised that in the Gold League, where they're against the insane bots, actually this high. But yeah, it's really crazy. So that's why I wanted to show the game for a second. I'll try and play and go to the game quick. Unfortunately, probably will be very difficult to do that because again, games like these take a long time to play out, and I'm not sure what kind of score I'll be able to get because the one score I actually did, basically playing through the first time, is basically now at exactly 100th place. This is the score I got on my phone. When I first got it, it used to be like 20th place. It's already gone down to 100. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. Now, let's go into the game to show you why. This is first of all with Yadak, with that sweet music. Yeah, because I'm playing Yadak, this video will be very difficult to record on top of that as well. I cannot help myself but listen to the entirety of Yadak's track whenever I hear it. But that aside, this game has, other than us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 tribes, which combined with Yadak is 15, which is every single tribe in a game. This is a 196 style Giants map, so it's a small map. But yeah, these tribes basically fit exactly on every single possible spawn location on the map, except for one. There is one single spot on the map that there could be a tribe, which is over here. There actually isn't a tribe here. This map basically is like the ninth player on very small island map, like type of map that you get, right? Where basically every single spot on the map is owned by a tribe. This is that, except on a small maps, which is like almost twice as big, and so there's almost twice as many tribes. And yeah, that's why it's pretty crazy. Again, 14 opponents. Now, what I have figured out to do is obviously we use the roll, and we do go for the second village here, and we'll also chain another warrior. I do think this start is exactly necessary. I'll hope that this is as good as I can score, but yeah, as you can already see, on the first turn we meet 3 opponents basically already. And yeah, with that, we can, first of all, we start with organization. And we get an explorer, and we're going to want to get both of the cities so that we can take an explorer in both of them. Alright, so after all, this game actually took about 3 whole hours to actually play, and I don't have the time to try and actually edit it. And even if I did, the video would end up like multiple hours long probably. So I decided I'm just, again, as per usual, I'm just gonna speed through the game and I'm gonna voice over some things while the footage is playing. Obviously, the strategy you actually want to go for in the early game is rushing diplomacy and getting embassies with all the bots. That is the usual strategy that you go for whenever you're on a map with a lot of bots, and suffice it to say, this map definitely is one of them. So what we want to try and do is capture the second city, and we go for an explorer both in the capital and in the second city. And those two explorers together reveal just about the whole map, other than a few bots, in particular Hujik actually takes a while until we meet them. Now, because this is the Silver League and the bots are on hard mode, you don't actually necessarily get to get an embassy with every single bot because on hard mode the bots don't actually immediately sign peace with you even if you give them an embassy. They only really go for peace with you if you're actually attacking one of the tribes that they're already at war with. And then they'll like you enough to go to peace with you. That is why we only really go for embassies with about half of the bots on the map, maybe like 60% of them. Obviously, with the ones that are next to the tribes that are going to attack you for the most part, and also for some that are like in the far corners of the map, that even if they don't sign peace with you, they're not going to attack you either just because they're on the other side. And embassies are still worth even if they only give you 2 stars. But yeah, obviously you want to try and also kind of gauge. That's why you may see me in the footage constantly opening the tab with all the tribes and checking what my relationship with them is to actually see if a tribe may be actually willing to go to peace, or if a tribe may actually not like us a lot and break peace or something like that. And yeah, you kind of have to for the early game check that quite a lot to get as much value from your embassies as possible. And after that, you kind of want to get your markets as soon as possible. Again, another strategy that you do whenever you're playing in a game that has a lot of resources, which suffice it to say, this definitely is one of them. Again, you want to get your income going as quickly as possible so that you can start snowballing and getting even more income from there. But another thing you want to balance out is how many troops you're getting, because in this game the hard bots do attack you constantly, and you basically have to almost constantly train at least some sort of a unit in most of your cities, at least for the early game. And you also have to be pretty efficient in taking out the bots, because one thing that I did actually struggle with in previous attempts that I've had in this game is it can actually become surprisingly difficult to take out the bots in the last few turns of the game. Often by the end of the game, you really get the sense that you'll be able to take all the bots out because you already have most of the map, and you definitely will, but it honestly feels like the timer you have start breaking peace with the bots can actually sometimes come like way too soon than you actually expect to. But yeah, you have to pay attention to when you can actually start killing the bots and when that would be a good time. In this game, we actually first of all got a very nice head start by getting something which I hadn't managed in any other previous run, which is I was able to capture Barder's capital in the early game before Quetzali actually did. And that's something that I hadn't actually been able to do previous attempts. And we actually had 3 cities kind of in the first 5 turns of the game, which was definitely better than any other attempt I had made before. And I think that actually helped a lot in the position I was fighting the bots on from later on. I had one game where, for example, Quetzali was in a really big problem by the end because they had 3 cities and it was really difficult taking them out. In this game, it wasn't the case, though it was kind of close because I also did have one turn where I was just about able to siege Aquarian City, in which they get a wall and they had a warrior. I was about to cloak their capital, and one of the daggers that spawned from the cloak happened to spawn in the one exact spot where it would prevent me to get the siege. And in order to actually get to siege, I had to also attack in a way where I basically left Aquarion, free for Quetzali to siege. I'm pretty sure they were able to, but they didn't, and thankfully I still got to siege immediately the next turn after that. That was honestly one thing that potentially could have cost me the run, or not the run, but like would have slowed me down so significantly that I may have gotten a significantly worse score by the end, honestly. But yeah, because of previous games where I had kind of failed to capture all the bots, I was very cautious in when I would get to break peace with the bots. And I was even a bit probably too cautious where I actually managed to take out all the bots on turn 18, which was pretty huge. Probably, didn't even need to go that hard and could have like waited a bit longer to eliminate the last bot who I was like making 8 stars from to embassies and whatnot. But it very much is better safe than sorry in this game mode. Other than balancing how much stars you have to spend on units, some point throughout the middle of the game, you also have to start balancing what kind of stars you actually spend on temples and on tech. Because, and this is a bit of a rarity, usually most weekly challenges don't have enough stars to where you can really get to place temples and they actually be worthwhile like expenditure of stars. But in games where again there is a crazy amount of stars, which this is one of them, you actually need to start thinking about when you can actually place temples. And this is the game where by far the most temples have been available. you'll actually see that by the end of the game, we actually have a crazy amount of temples all over the map. Some cities are like honestly completely filled with them, and a lot of them, in fact, I would say most of them aren't actually even placed by me. Like, you don't get to actually place most of those temples. The bots actually place a lot of them, which is probably one of the reasons why the higher leagues can actually score the same, or if not even bigger scores than the lower leagues, even though they're playing against harder bots that won't give them near as many stars from embassies and whatnot. You actually can still score as much because the harder bots place more temples and place their monuments. Yeah, you also get quite a bit of monuments from the other bots as well. You probably get collectively more monuments placed from the other bots than you get to place yourself. Because you actually place only 6 monuments in this run. Since the pacifist monument, I think it's basically impossible to get against the hard bots. I think the only way of getting the pacifist monument is if you probably kill all the bots by turn 15, which I think is basically impossible. Though again, I got to kill them on turn 18, so it's not probably that unrealistic, but it would be very difficult. I can't imagine it's optimal. And at this point, that single monument doesn't really even matter that much. A lot of the points you actually get from monuments and temples actually come from the ones that the boss actually placed. But even with that, you still get to actually think about which ones and when you get to place them. And then, obviously you also need to get all the tech so that you can get the genius monument. So throughout kind of like the middle of the game, as you're capturing more cities, you kind of need to think about when you can learn technologies and when you can place temples, on top of actually killing all of the bots. Now, I definitely don't play perfectly. There were quite a couple of times I made some, honestly, quite ridiculous misplays. There was one time where I forgot to actually ask for peace from a bot that was definitely gonna sign peace on that turn, and there were a couple of times where I had decided that I was going to break peace with a particular bot on a particular turn because I was ready to kill them, but I just forgot by the end of the turn. And the craziest of all is there was one turn where I was actually about to capture a city, and I was, figuring out what decks I was supposed to take on the turn, and thus I was holding off on actually capturing the city until the end. And on that same turn, I did remember to break peace with another bot, but I forgot to capture the city before I broke peace, and thus obviously my unit's action was wasted and it didn't capture. Thankfully, all those misplays ended up being fine. I still killed the bots very quickly after I broke peace with them, even though I forgot a couple of times, and the time I forgot to ask Luxador for peace, they did sign the turn immediately after, and the time where I forgot to capture Zaimanti's city, I did end up capturing it the next turn. It wasn't a problem, but if I had actually missed those, honestly, that actually would have likely had a huge impact on the game. I think that's about everything that I can comment on, and I'm just gonna let the rest of the footage play over the sounds of some sweet Yadak tunes. Okay, this is just about what I've managed to get to. And yeah, I'm not sure I played the most optimally there at the end, but not sure how much it matters because the stars were indeed almost enough for everything, for all the parts I could get. They really, I think, wanted enough for 3 or 4 parks I may have been able to get. It's this city here, the capital, and this city here, where I think I could have gotten an extra park if I had more stars. Alright, and one over here. In the in this city here, it may even be possible to get two, but I'm not sure on that. So it's between 4 and 5 parks were missed by me not actually having enough stars for them. But yeah, other than that, basically an unlimited amount of stars here for the end. Now the last thing we have is chain spender 5 stars to chain a random swordsman or something. And this is our final score, which by the way, we're gonna end this now. And right, we have 6 whole thousand points just from Armen territory, which is pretty wild. We have 15,000 points from cities, and monuments and temples make 14,000, which about 2,400 of these points are coming from our monuments. The rest are coming from temples and also the other bots' monuments, right? Anyway, the final score is 41,000, which, by the way, yes, is third place. I originally was not expecting I'd be able to get this high of a score. But I sure am glad. It's third place in the Silver League and it's probably still like within the top 10 if you account for all the scores side. Beats all the scores in the entry league. I guess in the Bronze League, there's actually a lot of okay. The Bronze League there's like 20 people with higher scores, man. That's strange. In the Silver League, the drop off is quite significant here. Again, yeah, third place for our respective league, it's still genuinely insane. So yeah, honestly, I'm very glad I'm not playing this against like the insane bots. I feel like I would not have fun in this weekly challenge against insane bots in the Gold League. Yeah, that's all I wanted to record for today. I just had to make a video on this because I think this probably is the highest point game ever. Though all the bots in the game in total actually are 16. So they very much actually could have squeezed all of them on that map so that there is actually 16 bots there and there isn't a free empty village, right? So technically, you could get a game that still has more pods, and thus that game would probably score likely higher, right? But until they do that, yeah, 45,000 points, probably the highest score that's ever gonna be in a weekly challenge, still for a long time.